Daniel Price stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber and wondered how it had come to this. He had served as Earth's ambassador for 12 years. In that time, he had negotiated trade deals, prevented wars, and built friendships with species from across the galaxy. Now those same species were voting to take away everything humanity had worked for. The chamber was enormous. Hundreds of seats rose in curved rows, each occupied by representatives from different worlds. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of living crystal. Some breathed methane and sat in sealed pods. Some were so small they needed mechanical suits to be seen. Daniel had learned all their names, studied their cultures, respected their traditions. None of that mattered today. The Zynthian Empire wanted Earth's outer colonies. They claimed humans had violated some ancient trade agreement that nobody could actually prove existed. The evidence was thin. The logic was worse. But the Zynthians were powerful, and they had called in favors from half the council. When the vote came, it wasn't even close. 847 species voted yes. Only Earth voted number. High Chancellor Vorn brought down his crystalline gavel. The sound echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. The matter is decided. Earth will surrender control of its outer colonies to the Zynthian Empire within 30 standard days. Daniel looked around the chamber. He saw the Krovax ambassador sleeping in his chair. He saw the Vendalian representative checking her messages. He saw the Thulian delegation laughing about something completely unrelated. These were the species humanity had bled for. Earth ships had protected their trade routes. Earth doctors had cured their plagues. Earth engineers had rebuilt their stations after disasters. Captain Lisa Monroe was watching from the Valiant, humanity's flagship positioned near the station. She had commanded that ship for 8 years. She had fought pirates to protect Council merchants. She had rescued stranded vessels from a dozen different species. She had lost crew members defending worlds that weren't even human. Her first officer, Kevin Barnes, had served with her through all of it. "They're really going to do this," Kevin said quietly, watching the vote tally on the screen. "Yes," Lisa said. "They are." She thought about Lieutenant Amy Chen, killed defending a Javarian colony from raiders. She thought about Engineer Marcus Hill, who died fixing a Plenarin Station's reactor. She thought about all the humans who had given everything for the Council, believing they were building something good. The Council had just told her those sacrifices meant nothing. Daniel Price gathered his documents slowly. He placed each paper in his case with careful precision. The chamber grew quiet. Species who had ignored his 6-hour presentation suddenly paid attention. They sensed something was wrong. "Ambassador Price," Vorn said, "the Council expects Earth's full cooperation with the transition." Daniel closed his case. He looked up at the High Chancellor. His voice was calm and clear. "Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately." The chamber exploded. Representatives shouted. Translators struggled to keep up with dozens of languages spoken at once. Vorn hammered his gavel repeatedly, demanding silence. "You cannot simply leave," Vorn declared. "There are procedures. There are obligations." "We wrote those procedures, Chancellor," Daniel replied. Article 47, Section 3. Any member species may withdraw if continued membership violates their fundamental sovereignty. Earth invokes that article. "We are done here." He walked toward the exit. His team followed. 4 diplomats, 2 security officers, 1 cultural liaison. They had worked together for years. They moved as one unit, their footsteps synchronized on the polished floor. Not one of them looked back at the shouting council members. Lisa Monroe received the withdrawal order on her command console. She read it twice to be sure. All Earth Defense Fleet vessels are to return to human-controlled space immediately. Cease all operations in Council territory. Provide no assistance to Council members. Complete withdrawal within 72 hours. Kevin looked at her. "Captain, we're supposed to patrol the Kashari Nebula for another week. If we leave now, there's no protection for the trade lanes." "I know," Lisa said. She thought about the merchants who traveled those lanes. She had escorted hundreds of their ships. She knew many of the captains by name. Helm set course for Sol system. Maximum speed. The Valiant turned and jumped to faster-than-light travel. Behind them, the patrol route lay empty. On the agricultural world of Planara, Dr. Aaron Hughes was working in the fields he had planted 3 years ago. He had come to this world when a crop disease threatened to starve millions. The Planarans were a gentle species, farmers who had never hurt anyone. Their world was dying, and they had begged the Council for help. The council had sent Aaron. Just Aaron and 3 assistants. He had studied Plenarin soil for 8 months. He had created hybrid crops that could resist the disease. He had taught Plenarin farmers how to cultivate them. The first harvest had saved millions of lives. The second harvest had restored hope. The third harvest, scheduled for 2 months from now, would finally make Plenara self-sufficient again. Aaron's communication device buzzed. He read the message from Earth. All human personnel are to withdraw from council space immediately. Leave no equipment or technology behind. He stood in the field, looking at the crops he had created. Around him, Plenarin farmers were working, laughing, planning for the harvest. They had become his friends. He knew their families. He had attended their celebrations. A Plenarin named Keltu approached him. Keltu had 4 eyes and skin like tree bark. He had worked beside Aaron every day for 3 years. "Dr. Hughes, is something wrong?" "I have to leave," Aaron said. "Earth has recalled all personnel." Keltu's 4 eyes widened. "But the harvest. You promised to see us through the full cycle." "I know. I'm sorry. I left detailed instructions in your database. Everything you need to know is there." "What about the equipment? The soil analyzers? The irrigation systems?" "I can't leave them. They belong to Earth, but the knowledge is yours. The crop strains are yours. You can do this without me." Keltu reached out and touched Aaron's arm with his rough, bark-like hand. "We will starve." Aaron felt something break inside him. He had given 3 years of his life to these people. He had solved their problem. He had saved their world. And now he was leaving them before the job was finished. "Follow the instructions," he said quietly. "You can do this." He walked away from the fields. His assistants followed, carrying only their personal belongings. The agricultural drones stayed behind, now useless without human operators. The soil analyzers stayed behind, their data locked. The irrigation system stayed behind, their maintenance protocols too complex for the Plenarins to manage alone. Behind them, the Plenarin farmers stood in silence, watching the human shuttle rise into the sky. The same scene played out across council space. Human merchants closed their shops. Human engineers left their posts. Human teachers walked out of classrooms. Human doctors abandoned hospitals mid-shift, leaving detailed patient notes but taking their expertise with them. They broke nothing. They sabotaged nothing. They simply stopped working. Commander Jake Peterson supervised the withdrawal from Nexus Station, the Council's largest commercial hub. Humans maintained 40% of the station's critical systems. Life support, power distribution, waste recycling. The jobs that nobody else wanted because they were hard and thankless. The station master, a Gavarian named Thux, confronted Jake in the operations center. "You cannot leave," Thux said, his scales turning orange with anger. "These systems require constant maintenance." "Then maintain them," Jake replied, removing the access codes from his console. "We left complete documentation in the shared database. We don't have anyone trained on these systems, and that's not our problem anymore. We volunteered to run these systems because nobody else would. Now we're done volunteering. This is sabotage." Jake turned and looked at Thux. For the first time, the Gavarian saw real anger in the human's eyes. Sabotage would be if we broke something. "We built these systems. We maintained them for free for 20 years. We improved them. We kept this station running while your people did more profitable work. Now we're leaving and you'll have to do your own maintenance. The fact that you never bothered to learn how your own station works is your failure, not ours." He walked past Thux. 28 human engineers followed him. They left their tools neatly organized. They left the documentation clearly labeled. They left everything in perfect working order. They just wouldn't be there to keep it that way. Within 72 hours, every human had left council space. They took nothing that wasn't theirs. They destroyed nothing. They threatened no one. They simply went home. And the council, celebrating its victory over Earth, didn't yet realize what it had lost. The first week after humanity's withdrawal was quiet. Too quiet. High Chancellor Vorn sat in his office reviewing reports. Earth had followed through on every aspect of their withdrawal. Every human was gone. Every ship had returned to human space. Every diplomat had left their post. It was clean, professional, and somehow disturbing. "They didn't even argue," Vorn said to his aide, a young Thulian named Rex. "Should they have?" Rex asked. "Most species threaten. They make demands. They try to negotiate better terms. The humans just left. Vorn pulled up the records of Earth's final statement to the Council. It was 2 sentences long. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. All future communication should go through formal diplomatic channels. No threats, no complaints, no drama. It made Vorn nervous. The Kashari Nebula was the first place where the withdrawal mattered. The nebula contained rich mineral deposits and 3 habitable planets. More importantly, it was the shortest route between the industrial sectors and the agricultural worlds. Thousands of ships passed through every week. Before humanity withdrew, Earth Defense Fleet ships patrolled the area constantly. The patrol routes were published. Pirates knew that hitting a convoy in the Kashari Nebula meant facing human warships within minutes. So they avoided it. Now the patrol routes were empty. Captain Vorik commanded a Thulian merchant vessel carrying food to the inner colonies. He had made this run 200 times. He knew every asteroid, every gas cloud, every shortcut. He also knew the human patrol schedule. He always felt safer when he saw Earth ships on his sensors. This time his sensors showed nothing. "Where are the humans?" his navigator asked. "Gone," Vorik replied. "They left the Council." "All of them?" "All of them." The navigator looked nervous. "Should we request a Council escort?" Vorik checked the available security forces. The nearest Council patrol was 6 hours away. "We'll be fine." "Pirates don't move this fast." He was wrong. 3 pirate vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of his ship. They had been waiting, watching, learning the new reality. No humans meant no quick response. No quick response meant easy targets. Vorik's ship had no weapons. Merchant vessels depended on patrols for protection. He sent out a distress call, knowing it would take hours for help to arrive. The pirates boarded his ship, took his cargo, and disabled his engines. By the time Council security forces arrived, the pirates were long gone. It happened again the next day. And the day after that, within a week 12 ships were hit in the Kashari Nebula. Casualties were light because pirates wanted cargo, not bodies. But the message was clear. The trade lanes were no longer safe. On Planara, the crops were failing. Keltu stood in the fields that Dr. Hughes had planted, watching the hybrid crops turn brown. He had followed the instructions exactly. He had maintained the watering schedule. He had tested the soil. Everything was perfect according to the data, but the crops were dying anyway. He didn't understand why. The instructions were clear, but they assumed knowledge that humans took for granted. Aaron Hughes knew what healthy crops looked like. He knew the subtle signs of nutrient deficiency. He knew when to adjust the water mixture, when to modify the soil treatment, when to harvest early if conditions changed. Keltu just had instructions. Instructions written by someone who assumed the reader understood farming the way humans did. "We need to contact Dr. Hughes," Keltu said to the other farmers. They tried. They sent messages to the last known address they had for Aaron. They got an automated response. "Dr. Hughes is no longer working with Council species. For agricultural assistance, please contact the Council Agricultural Committee." They contacted the committee. A board administrator told them it would take 6 to 8 months to send a new agricultural mission to Planara. Did they want to file a formal request? Keltu looked at the dying crops. They had maybe 3 weeks before the entire harvest failed. 8 months was meaningless. "What do we do?" another farmer asked. Keltu had no answer. Nexus Station was having its own problems. Commander Thuck stood in the operations center, staring at a control panel that made no sense to him. The life support system in Sector 7 was failing. Oxygen levels were dropping. The human documentation was clear. It explained exactly what to check, what to adjust, what to replace. But reading about fixing a life support system and actually fixing one were very different things. "Did you recalibrate the oxygen mixture?" a Gavarian engineer asked. "Yes," Thux replied, "according to Step 7 of the procedure." "And you checked the pressure valves?" "Step 12. Then why isn't it working?" Thux didn't know. The documentation was perfect. The procedures were detailed. But somewhere between the written word and the actual equipment, something was wrong. The human engineers who had maintained these systems for 20 years knew how to troubleshoot. They knew the quirks of each system, the little problems that never made it into the official documentation. Thux just had a manual. "Evacuate Sector 7, he finally said. "Until we figure this out, nobody goes in there." 43 residents had to leave their homes. They were angry. They demanded answers. Thucks had none to give them. The council emergency session was chaotic. Representatives from dozens of species shouted at each other. Trade was disrupting, security was failing, infrastructure was breaking down, and somehow it was all humanity's fault. They planned this, the Krovax ambassador declared. They deliberately created dependencies, then withdrew to cause maximum damage. They didn't create dependencies, Ambassador Kellis said quietly. The old Drexerin had served on the council for 60 years. She had watched humanity join, watched them grow, watched them contribute. They filled gaps. They did work nobody else wanted to do. We let them because it was convenient. We should demand they return, the Vendalian representative said. They have obligations. What obligations? Kellis asked. They left legally. They violated no treaties. They gave proper notice. They even left documentation for everything they were doing. The only obligation that existed was in our minds. We thought they would keep working for us forever. Then what do? Kellis spread her hands. We learned to do the work ourselves. The chamber fell silent. The idea of actually doing the maintenance, the patrol duty, the agricultural missions, the infrastructure repairs seemed foreign. Those were human jobs. Humans were good at that kind of work. Other species had more important things to do. Except now there were no humans and the work still needed doing. We need to hire security contractors for the trade lanes, Vorn said finally. Private companies. We'll pay them to patrol. That will triple shipping costs, a merchant representative objected. Then shipping costs will triple. What's the alternative? Nobody had one. Captain Lisa Monroe sat on the bridge of the Valiant, positioned at the edge of human space. Her sensors picked up everything happening in the nearby council territory. She saw the pirate attacks. She saw the distress calls. She saw merchant ships limping to safety with damaged engines and stolen cargo. Kevin Barnes looked at her. Captain, we could help. We're right here. We're not members of the council anymore, Lisa said. Their space is not our responsibility. Since when did we only help council members? Since the council decided our colonies weren't worth protecting. Lisa's voice was hard. We gave them everything, Kevin. We protected their trade routes, saved their stations, fought their battles. And when we asked them to uphold a treaty, they voted against us without even thinking about it. I'm done sacrificing for people who don't respect what we give. What about the merchant crews? They didn't vote against us. They elected representatives who did. Lisa pulled up the voting records. Every species in the council is responsible for their government's actions. That's how representation works. She watched another distress call appear on her screen. A Plenaran transport under attack. 15 light years inside council space. Families aboard. Children. Her hand moved toward the helm controls, then stopped. We hold position, she said quietly. The distress call lasted 4 minutes, then went silent. Kevin said nothing. There was nothing to say. On Earth, President Helen Morris met with her cabinet. The reports from council space painted a clear picture. Infrastructure failing, security collapsing, trade disrupting, small species suffering. We should help, Defense Secretary Greg Palmer said. We have the resources. We also have principles, Secretary of State Carmen Liu replied. The council treated us like servants. They used our labor and gave nothing back. Why should we continue serving them? Because people are dying. People die every day in the galaxy, Carmen said. We can't save everyone. We shouldn't have to try, so we just watch? President Morris held up her hand. We're not watching. We're building something new. Several small species have contacted us about forming new partnerships. Real partnerships based on mutual respect. The Plenarans want to establish direct trade relations. The Drexarans are proposing a mutual defense pact. The Solarians are interested in cultural exchange. What about the council? Greg asked, what about them? They made their choice. They can live with the consequences. On Nexus Station, Sector 7 remained evacuated. The life support failure spread to Sector 8. Engineers worked around the clock trying to contain it, but every fix seemed to create a new problem. 3 months had passed since humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council. The situation was getting worse. Ambassador Kellis walked through the corridors of Nexus Station and saw the decay everywhere. Lighting panels flickered. Air circulation systems made strange noises. Whole sections remained closed because nobody could fix the environmental controls. The station that once housed 2 million residents now held barely 1 million. The rest had left, unwilling to risk living in a facility that was slowly breaking down. She entered High Chancellor Vorn's office without announcing herself. She was old enough that normal protocols didn't apply to her anymore. "Have you seen the latest reports?" she asked, dropping a datapad on his desk. Vorn looked tired. He had aged 10 years in 3 months. "Which reports? The security disasters? The infrastructure failures? The food shortages? The economic collapse?" "All of them," Kelly said. She sat down without being invited. "The Kashari Nebula is now completely controlled by pirates. No merchant ship dares go through there. Trade between the industrial and agricultural sectors has dropped by 60%. We hired security contractors who charge triple what we can afford. Most merchants just avoid the route now." Vorn pulled up a star map. Red zones marked areas that were now too dangerous for regular traffic. There were far too many red zones. "What about the alternate routes? Adding weeks to journey times. Shipping costs have quadrupled. Small species that depend on affordable trade are being economically isolated. Infrastructure status?" Kellis laughed bitterly. 23 stations are reporting critical system failures. Nexus alone has evacuated 30% of its population. We've lost life support in entire sectors. The documentation the humans left is useless without people who know how to apply it. We're training people. Training takes years. We need expertise now. Vorn stood and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the damaged sections of the station. Whole areas sat dark, their systems offline, their residents relocated. "The Xinthians are threatening to invade the old human colonies," he said quietly. "Of course they are. They got what they wanted from us. Now they're taking the next step. We don't have the military strength to stop them." "We never did," Kelly said. "Human ships protected those borders. Human patrols kept the Xinthians in check. Now there's nothing stopping them." "What about our own fleet?" Kellis pulled up military reports. Stretched impossibly thin. "We're trying to patrol trade routes, protect stations, respond to emergencies, and maintain border security. We're failing at all of it. Species are starting to question why they pay for council protection when the council can't actually protect them." Vorn sat back down. "How many species have left the council?" "Officially, 7. Unofficially, at least 15 more are considering it. To join humanity? To form their own agreements. The Plenarans have a direct partnership with Earth now. So do the Drexarans, the Solarians, the Takarians. They're building something new. Something that doesn't include us." Vorn was quiet for a long moment. "Can we contact Earth? Ask them to return?" "We've tried. Every message gets the same response. Earth is no longer a member of the Galactic Council. Please direct inquiries through formal diplomatic channels." "What are formal diplomatic channels?" "We don't know. Earth hasn't told us." The truth was worse than Kellis was saying. She had tried to contact Daniel Price personally. They had been friends once, or so she thought. She had sent him a private message explaining the situation, asking for help, appealing to their past relationship. His response had been polite and cold. "Ambassador Kellis, I appreciate your personal concern. However, Earth's position is clear. We no longer participate in council affairs. I wish you well in your future endeavors." That was it. No warmth, no opening for negotiation, just a formal goodbye from someone who had once called her a friend. On Planara, Keltu buried another child. The harvest had failed completely. The emergency food shipments from the council were insufficient. Starvation was spreading. The young and the old died first, their bodies too weak to survive on reduced rations. Keltu had watched his people suffer for 3 months. He had tried everything. He had followed every instruction Dr. Hughes left. He had experimented with different techniques. Nothing worked. The hybrid crops needed constant adjustment, constant monitoring, constant expertise that humans possessed and Plenaran simply didn't. He stood at the grave of a 7-year-old girl named Penna. She had loved to help in the fields. She used to follow Aaron Hughes around, asking endless questions about plants and soil and growing things. Aaron had been patient with her, always taking time to explain things in ways she could understand. Now she was dead, and Aaron was gone, and Keltu wanted to scream at the unfairness of it all. "Why won't they help us?" another farmer asked. "Because we're part of the council," Keltu said bitterly. "The council that voted against them. But we didn't vote. We have no say in council decisions. We're too small. The humans don't care. They left everyone, not just the ones who voted against them. But that wasn't quite true. Keltu had heard rumors. Earth was helping species who had left the council. The Drexarans were receiving agricultural support. The Solarians had human engineers working on their stations. Species who broke away from the council found willing partners in humanity. Species who stayed loyal to the council got nothing. That night, Keltu called a meeting of Planara's leadership council. It wasn't much of a council. Planara had no real government, just informal groups of elders who made decisions together. 20 farmers gathered in the largest building in the settlement. "We need to leave the Galactic Council," Keltu said. The room erupted in argument. Some agreed. Some were afraid. Some thought it was betrayal. "The council is supposed to protect us," one elder said. "How?" Keltu demanded. "By sending food shipments that aren't enough? By promising help that never comes? We're dying while the council argues about procedures and protocols. But we're too small to survive alone. We won't be alone. Earth is accepting new partnerships. They're helping species who leave the council. Why would they help us? We didn't support them." Keltu thought about Aaron Hughes in the fields teaching Penna about photosynthesis. Because that's what they do. They help, they always helped. The council just took it for granted. The vote was close, but it passed. Planara would formally withdraw from the Galactic Council and request direct diplomatic relations with Earth. They sent their message and waited. Captain Lisa Monroe was in her quarters when the message arrived. She read it 3 times, feeling emotions she thought she had buried. Planara was requesting help. They were withdrawing from the council. They were asking Earth for a partnership based on mutual respect and benefit. She called Aaron Hughes on a secure channel. He was at a research station in the Sol system, developing new agricultural techniques for human colonies. "Aaron, I need to ask you something personal." "Go ahead." "Captain, Planara wants to leave the council. They're asking us for help. I know you spent 3 years there. I know you had to leave people behind. If Earth agrees to partner with them, would you go back?" Aaron was quiet for a long time. "Are they really leaving the council?" "They're sending the formal withdrawal notice tomorrow." "Then yes, I'd go back. Those people are dying because they don't have the expertise. I can fix that. Even after everything that happened?" "Captain, I never blamed the Planarans. They had no power in the council. They were victims of the same system that betrayed us. If they're brave enough to leave that system, then yes, I'll help them." Lisa sent her recommendation to Earth Command. Within 12 hours, President Morris approved a formal partnership agreement with Planara. Within 24 hours, Aaron Hughes was on a ship heading back to the world he thought he'd never see again. The council learned about Planara's withdrawal through public channels. Nobody had bothered to inform them privately. "That makes 8 species," Voren said, staring at the notification. 8 species who no longer trust us," Kellis added. 8 species who found better partners outside the council. They'll suffer without council protection. Will they? From what I'm seeing, they're doing better than we are. Earth is providing them with everything we promised but never delivered. Voren pulled up economic reports. The breakaway species were forming their own trade network. Human ships protected their routes. Human engineers maintained their stations. Human specialists provided expertise in agriculture, medicine, infrastructure, and security. It was everything the council was supposed to do. But humans were doing it better, faster, and with a level of commitment the council had never matched. "They're building a rival alliance," Voren said. "No," Kellis corrected. "They're building a better alliance, one based on partnership instead of exploitation." The Zynthian Empire attacked the former human colonies exactly 3 months after Earth's withdrawal. 3 colony worlds lightly defended, rich in resources. It should have been an easy victory. It wasn't. Earth defense fleet ships appeared within minutes, not the old patrol vessels that used to lazily circle council space. These were warships fully armed, completely committed. They hit the Zynthian fleet with overwhelming force. The battle lasted 40 minutes. The Zynthians lost 12 ships. The humans lost none. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council faced a crisis that threatened its very existence. Commander Jake Peterson stood in the construction bay of Harmony Station, watching 6 different species work together on a joint project. Planarans operated welding equipment. Drexarans managed power distribution. Solarians handled communications arrays. Takarians supervised structural engineering. And humans coordinated it all, not as leaders but as partners. "Never thought I'd be back in space doing this kind of work," Jake said to his assistant, a young woman named Kate Murphy. "Better than Nexus Station?" Kate asked. "Much better. Nobody here treats maintenance like it's beneath them. Everyone contributes." Harmony Station was humanity's answer to the Council's failure. It sat in neutral space right at the border between human territory and the breakaway species who had left the Council. The station was smaller than Nexus, but it was efficient, well-maintained, and built on principles of genuine cooperation. Every species contributed resources. Every species provided personnel. Every species had equal say in decisions. It was everything the Council claimed to be but never actually achieved. Jake watched a Plenaran engineer solve a power distribution problem that would have stumped most Council workers. The Plenarans had learned fast once they had proper teachers. Aaron Hughes had returned to their world and brought a whole team of agricultural specialists. Within 2 months, the crops were growing again. Within 4 months, Planara had enough food to feed itself and begin exporting surplus to other breakaway species. "How many species are we up to now?" Kate asked. 14 have formally joined our alliance. Another 20 are in negotiations. That's more than a third of the Council's total membership. The Council's former membership. Most of those species have withdrawn. The alliance had a simple structure. Each species maintained sovereignty over its own territory. Joint defense was handled by a coalition fleet with human ships forming the core, but including vessels from all member species. Trade agreements were bilateral, negotiated between species directly without layers of bureaucracy. Infrastructure support came from shared resources, with specialists from any species helping wherever needed. It worked because everyone contributed and everyone benefited equally. There were no powerful species dominating weaker ones. There were no votes where large empires could outnumber small colonies. They were just partners working together because cooperation served everyone's interests. The Council had no answer to this model. They couldn't compete with it because they had never actually practiced it. On Nexus Station, things continued to deteriorate. Commander Thux stood in what used to be Sector 7 and surveyed the damage. The life support failure had spread to 5 more sectors. 16 people had died when an oxygen recycler completely failed. Hundreds more had been evacuated. The station that once symbolized Council unity now symbolized Council failure. "We need to hire human contractors," Thux said to his engineering team. "Earth won't send anyone," his lead engineer replied. "We've tried. They refuse to work in Council space care. What if we paid them triple the standard rate? They don't want our money. They want us to fail." But that wasn't true, and Thux knew it. Humans didn't want the Council to fail. They just didn't care anymore. The Council had demonstrated that human contributions meant nothing. Why would humans waste their time helping an organization that had betrayed them? The truth was simpler and more devastating. Humans were busy. They were building Harmony Station. They were establishing new colonies with their alliance partners. They were creating a new civilization based on principles the Council had abandoned. They had moved on. The Council was left behind, clinging to a broken system, unable to fix itself because it had never learned how to do the work that held societies together. High Chancellor Voren called another emergency session. The chamber was half empty. Many species had stopped sending representatives. They saw no point in participating in an organization that couldn't protect them, couldn't maintain basic infrastructure, and couldn't compete with the growing human-led alliance. "We need to address the exodus of member species," Voren began. "What's to address?" A bitter voice called out. It was the Vendalian ambassador, one of the few remaining. "Species are leaving because we offer them nothing. The humans offer them everything. We offer stability. We offer structure. We offer centuries of diplomatic tradition. We offer bureaucracy and failure," Ambassador Kellis said bluntly. She had stopped being diplomatic months ago. "The humans offer working infrastructure, real protection, and genuine partnership." "Of course species are leaving. Then what do you suggest we do?" "Admit we were wrong. Contact Earth, apologize, ask them to return." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Pride was still strong, even as the Council collapsed around them. "We will not beg," the Krovax ambassador declared. "They left us. Let them stay gone. Then we'll collapse," Kelly said simply. "Within a year, maybe 2, the Council will cease to exist. Most species will leave. The few that remain will be too weak to matter. The humans will have built something better and will have nothing. You're being dramatic, am I? Look at the numbers. 14 species gone, 20 more in negotiations to leave. Infrastructure failing across our entire network. Trade down 70%. Security non-existent in large areas of space. Tell me how this doesn't end in complete collapse. Nobody had an answer. President Helen Morris met with the Alliance Leadership Council at Harmony Station. 14 species were now full members, represented by their ambassadors or leaders. The meeting had no formal structure. People spoke when they had something to say. Decisions were made by consensus. It was chaotic compared to the rigid protocols of the Galactic Council. It was also far more effective. The Council is sending feelers about negotiations, Secretary of State Carmen Liu reported. Informal back channels. They want to know if Earth would consider returning. Absolutely not, said Ambassador Keltu representing Planara. We left the Council because it was broken. Going back would be insane. They're promising reforms, Carmen said. They've been promising reforms for centuries, Ambassador Kellis said. She had left the Council 3 months ago, bringing Drixara into the Human Alliance. Nothing ever changes. Power species dominate. Small species suffer. The bureaucracy protects itself. What if they're serious this time? President Morris asked, playing skeptic deliberately. They're serious about survival, Kellis replied. Not about change. The moment they stabilize, they'll revert to old patterns. That's how institutions work. So we let them collapse? We let them face the consequences of their choices, Keltu said firmly. They had centuries to build something good. They chose exploitation over partnership. They chose politics over problem solving. They chose pride over principles. Now they're failing and they want us to save them. Why should we? Captain Lisa Monroe, attending as Earth's military representative, spoke up. What about the species still in the Council? The ones who can't leave because they're too weak or too isolated? Do we just abandon them? We're not abandoning anyone, President Morris said. Any species that wants to leave the Council is welcome to apply for Alliance membership. We've made that clear. Some can't leave. They're too dependent on Council infrastructure. They don't have the resources to transition. Then we offer them a choice, Ambassador Kellis suggested. Join us and we'll help with the transition. Provide temporary support, technical assistance, whatever they need. But they have to commit to leaving the Council. We're not supporting species who want to keep one foot in both systems. The discussion continued for hours. By the end, they had a policy. The Alliance would actively recruit remaining Council species. They would offer generous support for transitions. They would build the infrastructure needed to accommodate new members. But they would not compromise their principles. This alliance was built on equality and mutual respect. Any species that couldn't commit to those values could stay with the Council. Aaron Hughes returned to Planara for the 3rd time, this time to attend a celebration. The harvest had succeeded. Food stores were full. The starvation had ended. Children were healthy again. The fields that nearly died 6 months ago were now thriving. Keltu met him at the landing pad with dozens of other Plenarans. They had prepared a feast, traditional foods mixed with new crops that Aaron had helped develop. The celebration lasted hours. People sang, danced, and shared stories. At one point, Keltu pulled Aaron aside. I wanted to thank you. You already thanked me. Several times. Not for the crops, for coming back. When you left the first time, I thought humans had abandoned us. I was angry. I didn't understand. What do you understand now? That you left because you had to, not because you wanted to. That you came back as soon as you could. That humanity never abandoned us. The Council did. Aaron looked at the fields, the healthy crops, the happy families. You know what's funny? The Council thinks we're punishing them by withholding our help. They think we're being vindictive, aren't you? No, we're just prioritizing. We're helping people who respect us. We're building partnerships with species who value what we contribute. The Council never valued us. They took us for granted. Why should we waste our energy on people who don't appreciate it? 1 year after humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council, High Chancellor Vorn sat alone in his office and faced the truth he had been avoiding for months. The Council was finished. Not officially. The chamber still convened. Representatives still attended sessions. Votes still happened. But it was all ceremony now. Meaningless ritual performed by an institution that had lost its purpose. Ambassador Kellis entered his office. She no longer served on the Council, but she still visited occasionally, perhaps out of pity or perhaps out of morbid curiosity, to watch something she had once believed in die slowly. "How many are left?" she asked. 43 species, Voron replied. His voice sounded empty. "Out of the original 854. The small ones. The weak ones? Mostly. Species that don't have anywhere else to go. Species too proud to admit they were wrong. Species that still believe the Council can somehow recover." Kelly sat down. She looked older than she had a year ago. "It won't recover. You know that. I know. Then why keep pretending?" Voron pulled up a display showing the Council's territory. What used to be a vast network spanning hundreds of star systems was now a scattered collection of isolated worlds. The connecting trade routes were gone. The security patrols were gone. The infrastructure that held it all together was gone. "Because I don't know what else to do," he admitted. "The Council has existed for 3,000 years. It survived wars, economic collapses, even the Great Plague. How does it end because one species left?" "It ends because that one species was holding everything together," Kelly said gently. "We didn't see it. We thought humans were just one species among many. We didn't realize they were the foundation. They weren't that important. Yes, they were. They did the work nobody else wanted to do. They maintained systems other species considered beneath them. They volunteered for dangerous missions because they believed in protecting others. They gave constantly, asking nothing in return. And we took it all for granted." Voron thought about the vote that had started everything, the vote to give human colonies to the Zynthians. 847 species voting yes, just one voting no. It had seemed like such a small thing at the time. A trade dispute, a political compromise, the kind of deal the Council made every day. "We didn't understand what we were doing," he said. "We understood perfectly," Kellis corrected. "We just didn't care. The humans were asking us to uphold a treaty. We decided it was easier to betray them than to stand up to the Zynthians. We made a choice. Now we're living with it." A message notification appeared on Voron's screen. It was the daily report of species leaving the Council. Today it was 3 more. Small agricultural worlds that had negotiated entry into the Human Alliance. By next month, they would have human agricultural specialists helping them improve their farming. By next year, they would be thriving. The Council offered them nothing except tradition and bureaucracy. "Have you seen what they're building?" Kellis asked. "The Alliance?" "Yes, I monitor their development. It's everything we claim to be. Real cooperation. Real mutual defense. Real partnership. It's smaller than the Council. For now. Give it time. They're growing faster than we ever did because people actually want to join them. They're not joining out of fear or because there's no alternative. They're joining because the Alliance treats them with respect." Voron closed the report. "What do you want me to do, Kellis? Dissolve the Council? Admit we failed? I want you to stop pretending. The Council is already dead. You're just watching the body cool." Captain Lisa Monroe stood on Harmony Station's observation deck watching ships come and go. It had been a year since she left Council space. A year since she watched that Plenaran transport's distress call go silent because she followed orders and stayed out of Council territory. That decision still haunted her sometimes, but she understood why it was necessary. The Council needed to learn that human help was not an entitlement. It was a gift that could be withdrawn when not valued. Kevin Barnes joined her at the window. "Final count is in. 28 species have joined the Alliance this year. Another 15 are in negotiations. How many stayed with the Council? 43. Most of them are the original power species, the ones who benefited most from the old system." Lisa watched a Plenaran transport dock at the station. She knew that ship. She had escorted it dozens of times back when she patrolled Council space. The captain had been terrified after humanity withdrew, afraid that pirates would destroy his ship. Now he flew under Alliance protection, safe and secure. "Any communication from the Council?" she asked. "They send requests every week, asking for meetings, proposing negotiations, offering various deals. What do they offer? Everything except what matters. They'll give us trade concessions, territory, votes in the Council chamber. They'll even apologize formally. But they won't actually change their system. They still want to be the center of galactic civilization with everyone else orbiting around them. So we keep saying no. President Morris says we don't need to say anything. Our silence is answer enough." Lisa thought about Daniel Price walking out of the Council chamber, his team following behind him, none of them looking back. That image had defined humanity's withdrawal. Quiet, dignified final. They didn't argue. They didn't make threats. They just left. And their leaving had changed everything. Aaron Hughes walked through the fields on Planara for what he hoped would be the last time. Not because he was leaving for good, but because his work was finally complete. The Plenarans didn't need him anymore. They had learned everything he could teach them. They had become experts in their own right. Keltu walked beside him, surveying the crops that stretched to the horizon. "Hard to believe this was all dying a year ago," Keltu said. "You saved it. I just gave you the tools. You gave us more than tools. You gave us hope. You showed us that there was an alternative to the council." Aaron stopped walking. "Do you ever regret leaving the council?" "Every day," Keltu said honestly. Leaving meant risking everything. We could have starved. We could have been attacked with no one to protect us. We could have been isolated and alone. But staying meant accepting that we didn't matter, that our lives were worth less than political convenience. I'd rather risk death than accept that. The council is collapsing, I know. I don't take pleasure in it. A lot of good people are suffering because their leaders made bad choices. Do you think we should help them?" Keltu looked at Aaron with surprise. "Why would we? They didn't help us, because we're better than they are. Because we don't let people suffer just to prove a point. Is that what you think we're doing? Proving a point? Aren't we?" Keltu was quiet for a long moment. "The council species are welcome to join our alliance anytime they want. The door is open. All they have to do is walk through it. But they won't, because walking through that door means admitting they were wrong. It means giving up power. It means accepting that humans and Planarans and Drexarans are their equals, not their servants. That's the price of entry. And most of them would rather collapse than pay it. So we just watch? We build something better and invite anyone who wants to join us. That's not abandonment. That's offering a choice." On Nexus Station, Commander Thuck supervised the final evacuation. The station was being abandoned. After losing life support in 60% of its sections, after multiple deaths, after months of failed repairs, the council had finally admitted defeat. The remaining population would be relocated to other stations. Nexus, once the jewel of council civilization, would be left empty. Thux walked through the dark corridors, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He passed the operations center where human engineers had once worked. The consoles were still there, covered in dust. The documentation was still in the computers, complete, inaccurate, and useless without people who knew how to apply it. He entered Sector 7, where the first life support failure had killed 43 people. The section was cold now, airless, dead. It had been so easy when humans maintained it. They fixed problems before they became crises. They kept systems running smoothly. They made it all look effortless. Thuck had never realized how much skill that required until he tried to do it himself. He left Nexus Station on the last transport, watching through the viewport as the massive structure grew smaller behind him. It would float here forever, probably, a monument to institutional failure, a reminder of what happened when people took others for granted. President Helen Morris gave a speech to the Alliance Council, her words broadcast to all member species. 1 year ago, humanity left the Galactic Council. We left because we were betrayed, because our contributions were valued at nothing, because we were treated as servants rather than partners. We left quietly. We destroyed nothing. We took only what was ours, and we built something new. She gestured to the assembled ambassadors from 43 species, representing billions of people across hundreds of worlds. This alliance is not perfect. We still argue. We still disagree. We still struggle with difficult decisions. But we do it as equals. Every voice matters. Every species contributes. Every member is valued for what they bring to our community. The council is collapsing. Some of you have asked if we should help them. My answer is simple. We already are helping them. We're showing them what real cooperation looks like.